On my first term. Yeah, this is my first term, my second year. So, and you can sign it again each time.
My name's.
Yeah, just go send a note to the commissioner, she'd like to come back on. Just let me know I'm on.
Right.
All they gotta do is just report.
I call this meeting of the Union County Planning Board on to order this day on Tuesday, March the 3rd. At this time, you all have your agenda in front of you. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda from the board members or from staff at this point in time?
Motion to approve is submitted.
All right, we have a motion to approve submitted.
I'll
Got a second. All those in favor say aye. Vote carries. All right. We have several minutes in our packet. I hope y'all will have an opportunity to look at them. Is there any questions at all for the approval of the January the 1st or August the 5th or the September the 9th minutes? And if you need just a few minutes to look at them, you're more than welcome.
Chairman, you mentioned January.
I'm sorry, I meant July, August, and
I
September.
was looking to, thought,
I
oops, I
apologize.
missed something somewhere, no.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I am sure I'm prone to do that. So when everyone has, if you've had an opportunity to look at them previously or now, and you feel comfortable with those, the chair will entertain a motion at any time.
So moved. Make a
Second.
motion and we pass the minutes.
All right, I've got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Sam, are you keeping notes over there? Thank you. I forgot all. I was like, oh.
Of course she is. She's highly efficient. She's not like us, okay? All right. We have before us tonight a rezoning petition.
Chairman.
Yes.
Number 5, can we discuss that one for just a minute?
I'm sorry, all right, we can. I was assuming that was gonna be it.
Not a
Go right
problem.
ahead. I apologize.
No, that's all right. One of the things I think you noticed, we had a number of minutes that were, of course, on this agenda, and what we run into is the way that we create these minutes is very labor intensive. They're not verbatim, but they're not an action item type minute. They're really basically sort of a hybrid. And what I was wanting to discuss with the board is, would you be willing to consider if we would do more of an action style type minutes where we describe the agenda item? We certainly put who made the motion, who did the second, and what the vote was. But if anyone wants specifics, we have a recording with the specifics and everything that everybody says. It's on the television. We show it on Channel 16 on the TV. It would make the creation of the minutes a lot easier and simpler for us, and it would get them on your agendas more quickly if we were to go to that format. But I just wanted to talk to you about it, see if there was something you'd be interested in before we would make that kind of change.
No problem with it.
Your comment?
Yeah.
I think what we need to do, Mr. Chairman, is keep it simple. And I think if we had a process like what you're talking about, that Robert has agreed upon, and then with the minutes, attach the agenda that went with it.
Yes, sir.
We've got things we can go back if we want checked, et cetera. So I agree with the recommendation as well.
I'll have to agree with it too, because it's not verbatim and it's just a general statement, and it's not necessary that there was an objection from so-and-so opposed to this. And so, and let's face it, if it comes to an official review. It has to be a verbatim statements, and it has to be created
Yes, sir.
verbatim.
We would have to go back and actually do a verbatim set of minutes if there was some legal challenge or some issue with that. We would do that, obviously, but if the board's comfortable, we would like to proceed with that with your, I believe, your November meeting minutes. I don't know that we had an October. We did have an October one, I say, so we may do that with starting with October, and from now on use that style if the board's comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with it myself. Do I hear a motion, or did I have a motion?
I don't know that you need a motion. We just wanted to make sure it was okay with you as far as we take that format, because really they're your minutes and you're the one who adopts them. We wanted to make sure you were comfortable with that format. So when the minutes come to you, you know, basically in the form of an adoption is how you'll approve it. So we don't necessarily need a motion, but I just wanted you guys to be comfortable with it.
No objections from any of the board members? All right.
None.
I think that would be a consent enough.
Great, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, now I will proceed in something I was erroneously skipped, all right? We have a rezoning petition, number RZ-15-01, James Allen Lee requesting a rezoning classification from R40 to B2, which is community business, containing 3.756 acres, being on tax maps, number 06-183-020 and number 06-183-003, which is located on Newtown Road within the Sandy Ridge Township. We would like to hear the presentation at this point in time.
Yes, sir. And I think,
If you could just state your name, please.
my name's Lee Jensen. I think all of you have a staff report in front of you on your tables there. Got a few little graphics prepared here for you guys. I'll just briefly go over this rezoning request. It's a request submitted by James Allen Lee, to rezone. Actually, it's two separate pieces of property owned by the same owner. Currently, they're designated as R40, and they're petitioning to rezone this property to B2, which is a community business zoning district. These properties lie about 960 feet west of the intersection of Newtown and Providence Road on the north side of Newtown. And if you look at my cursor there, I don't know if you can see it that well. Those are the properties that I'm kind of circling around right there. Property is currently utilized as a single-family residence, and it's on the larger piece. The adjacent smaller piece is a vacant piece of property. The remaining property that doesn't have the residence on it is basically open area, wooded areas, and then there's a large power line cut on the western side of the property that I'm going to show you in just a second. This is a regular rezoning district, so it's a little bit different than the one you guys reviewed at the last meeting. So this is not a conditional request. This is a straight, regular rezoning where there's no site plan, uses aren't limited. It's just a regular, kind of like what you guys are used to in the past. Let me go over here. The zoning in the general area is a cluster of B4 kind of right at the intersection. So the intersection of this is Providence Road running north and south, and this is Newtown Road running east to west. And that red area is a B4 zoning district. So that's a commercial zoning district kind of clustered at that intersection. Everything else that's in the county around that's R40. So all that yellow that you see is an R40 zoning district. This map just kind of shows the different towns that are in the area. So just to the west of that piece, you see kind of a pink area. That's the town of Weddington. And then the southeastern corner of that intersection, some of the subdivisions over here, that's town of Marvin. And town of Marvin kind of goes down and around this way and back up over to the west. This piece on the southeastern corner was rezoned by Marvin years ago to a commercial zoning district, but my understanding is that the site plan for that has expired. Still zone commercial, but they don't have an approved site plan for that property right now. So again, this is the property here. You can see there's the existing house, and this is the vacant piece of property with the big kind of dirt driveway there. You can see this is a power line cut that I was referring to, and back behind the property, there's a Union Power substation, rather large. I want to bring up a different map here so you can kind of see a zoomed out area. And I've got the GIS, so we can zoom in closer and farther out as we need to. And actually, we'll do that right now because that's kind of hard to see. There we go. All right. So to the north of the property, you see there's that substation. So it's a big gravel lot, some utility type stuff on it for electrical power generation. As you move east, this is part of the B4 zoning district here, and those are medical office uses. I know there's a dentist office here, and I think at one time there was a chiropractor office there. It's more medical in nature. As you continue east on the north side of the road, this is a shopping center. This is there's a coffee shop in this place and a couple other little retail type uses, and I think a Bank of America right here, and there's a building here now that doesn't show up on this aerial photograph. This is a 2010 aerial, so it's a little older. There's a building here, and I believe it might contain some
Goddard
dentist office and maybe some other type retail uses. As we go to the south, there's also to the north, there's a church that kind of borders all that property kind of on the north side. As we head south, this is a CVS, so we've got a drugstore use right here at the corner and kind of a vacant lot there for some maybe future development. And we've got an Auto Bell here. And all these big long buildings there, that's a mini storage facility. Directly across the street is a residence here, big large open field or open wooded tract right there. On the other side of Newtown, you've got residential uses. You got a subdivision here. This is kind of a tough tract here and here, but and then again, you've got the commercial piece that was zoned by the town of Marvin several years ago. As we head west away from the property, again, you go into the town of Weddington. This is a large vacant tract of land. This is all one owner, but it's in the town of Weddington, large vacant tract. And then as you keep going, you get back into the county. And you get some little satellite annexation here that Marvin did. This is Marvin's Park. So that's where the park is. And then you get into some more residential development as you move back down Newtown Road. So again, that's kind of a general overview of the area and as far as land use and zoning goes. The comp plan, this area. Let me pull up the comp plan here so you guys can see that. Kind of zoomed in this area just a little bit. So we're kind of right in this area right here, and that property is indicated as kind of laying under that neighborhood center node, and that the neighborhood centers are located near, and this is just verbatim straight out of the comprehensive plan. The neighborhood centers are located near concentrations of existing or planned residences in areas with access to major thoroughfares and utilities, and we're not in competition with existing centers. Typical uses within neighborhood centers include grocery stores, retail establishments, restaurants, and services. Retail centers typically range from about 30,000 square feet up to 125 square feet of retail space and generally serve an area of up to 2 miles. The neighborhood center at this location, using some of the tax records, I went and tried to calculate the total amount of retail space. And we just look at retail, so you're taking the offices and the medical stuff out and just looking at retail, you come up with about 32,000 square feet of retail space that's currently there right now. Total development is quite a little bit more than that, because you've got the medical office, you've got the bank. Actually, I included the bank in the retail, but you've got the real estate offices. You've got things like that aren't necessarily retail, but are more service type businesses. So you get about 32,000 square feet of retail right now. Also, the rezoning, if it was approved, would support the SHOP 1.0 strategy in the comprehensive plan. What that plan says is to expand potential amount of retail developable property in the county. So that would potentially make this property available for additional retail development. Staff recommendation, staff is of the opinion that this rezoning request is consistent with the adopted comp plan and the findings can be made to support the request. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the rezoning from R40 to B2 based on land use plan. I do want to note, however, that since this is a traditional rezoning request, that all uses that are allowed in the B2 district could be established if the rezoning was approved. So this won't lock in a particular use. Any use that's available within that B2 district, if it's by right, they could just come in and get a permit from staff, after a site plan review. There's some uses that are special use permits that they would have to go before the Board of Adjustment. So just keep that in mind when you're considering the request. Typically, staff usually prefers a conditional rezoning request. It's up to the applicant as to how they want to proceed. So, with a conditional request, you can narrow uses, approve a site plan with it, those kind of things. And just so y'all have it, I've attached, and we typically do this on commercial rezonings. This isn't something that we did specifically for this one. But we usually pull out some of the allowed uses. So I've pulled out all the allowed uses by right and all the allowed uses with the special use permit, just so you can see what some of those different uses are. If you've got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those. If you want to go back and look at any of these additional maps, we can do that as well.
Good report.
Thank you.
Yeah, this time, can I assume that we're not privy to what would be built on that property if rezoned?
No, sir. I mean, you could certainly ask the applicant that, but they're not bound to it. And they may not even know.
And the
It's
distinction.
our understanding they don't have a tenant. Right. That's our understanding.
In our last meeting, when we went from an R20 to an R10, correct?
R8.
R8. That was like a special use type thing. We agreed to their site plan and to all that before we would agree to it. Now, is that in a situation like this, is that applicable to this also?
No, this particular applicant has decided to request a traditional rezoning, which is not does not give the planning board nor the commissioners the ability to negotiate conditions. It is up or down. So essentially, and it's the applicant's choice. They can choose which route they want to go. It has to be their decision on whether they apply for a conditional rezoning or not. So in this particular case, the planning board would give a recommendation in favor or a recommendation, against, because there's no real negotiating back and forth on that.
But even that conditional rezoning does extend into this B2, correct?
It could, if the applicant had requested that.
Requested, it could extend into this.
Absolutely, and just to make you aware, there are situations where an applicant may not have a tenant, and they may not have a site plan, but the board could negotiate to reduce the actual uses that are in there without having a site plan. So if you were still comfortable with a B2 zoning, and I'm saying under a conditional zoning, not under this one, but under a conditional zoning, then the board and the applicant could negotiate to reduce the uses even without a site plan. So the site plan is not always necessary. It really depends on, you know, the use, and it depends on what the board's comfortable with. In this particular situation, I don't think they have a tenant. I don't believe they have someone to purchase yet, so they're not asking for a conditional rezoning.
Lee, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
You've given us uses allowed in B2 by right, and then supplemental, is that?
Special use permit.
Special use.
Okay, all right. The question I've got, this is what it can be used for. There's nothing else.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
I've got a question. Yes, the notice was provided to all the adjacent property owners and nobody responded with any concern or opposition?
We'll be sending out another notice. Eventually, this will go up to the Board of Commissioners for public hearing. We'll send out an additional notice for that, post a sign on the property as well.
Chairman, entertain a motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Can we speak to the applicant at all?
Absolutely.
Before we
I mean, and
take a vote?
I mean, he has the opportunity to present if you want him to.
I'm not going to complain. Approve it and go home.
I withdraw my motion temporarily.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm James Allen Lee. I'm here on behalf of my client, Ms. Ellery Pittman, who owns this property and has lived there for several decades. And I guess Lee's done a good job of showing you. You saw the layout, and maybe again you can pull it up, but you can see this property is right there on Newtown Road. The pictures don't really do it justice, and I'm sure most of y'all have driven by here. You know, I remember this intersection a long time ago when I was delivering horse feed in the county, and there used to be a little country store sitting at that intersection where we could stop and get fried chicken and French fries when we were making runs. It's changed a lot since then. And you know, Ms. Pittman's house was there then. It's there now, and the reason this is not a conditional application is because she wants to sell her property. And she's owned that property there for decades and wants to be the person that realizes the appreciation that the property's had. She could go sell it now at R40. Nobody's gonna build a house on that beside all this commercial with the power lines going in there. She could go sell it to somebody and they could buy it for a reduced rate, and then they come up here and put together a packet and try to go get a conditional zoning approved for the specific use that they want. But she wants to be able to realize that appreciation of the property that she has owned for those years. And that's the purpose. And, you know, the plan, if you read, when we looked at what we're gonna do, and I came and met with Lee and Brian and talked about what's the proper usage for this and where is it in the future land use plan, but the B2 community business, and I'm just gonna read straight from your new ordinance, you know, community business district is primarily intended to accommodate low intensity commercial uses. It is generally appropriate as a transition zone or to accommodate small scale commercial development in rural areas, particularly at crossroads or other high traffic areas that are not generally suited for residential development. I mean, to me, that's describing this piece of property. You know, that's what it's here for. And, you know, when you look at the scheme of the commercial districts that are available, and everything that comes through doesn't have to be a conditional use. I mean, I understand that staff and boards, everything like that, but I kind of like the feeling of, hey, I'm a property owner. I have the right to use my property for the uses that I get approved within these districts. and I don't have to come and get specific approval for the exact use I want to put on it. You know, that ought to have something to do with the property owner. But I digress, that's my personal opinion, nothing to do with this. But the only one that is less, or I guess I would say more restrictive, is office. And the reason we didn't choose office, quite frankly, is because there's no retail available there, and that's a very likely potential use of this. And in the B2, retail is available. I think it's 50,000 square feet or less. I think you'd be hard pressed to fit something that large on this piece of property. So that's why we went with the B2 instead of the office. But you can look through the uses yourselves. I'm not gonna pretend to say that, you know, that I can tell you better what it can be used for than you can look at it and see yourself. But to me, there aren't many noxious uses that could be put on this property and its location and the proximity to everything else. I think B2 is a classification that fits it well. And again, my client wants to realize the appreciation of the property herself instead of letting a developer buy our property at a reduced rate and let them realize that appreciation. Other than that, I think Lee's done a good job of showing where the property is and where it sits, and I'm available if you have any questions.
So at this point, she has no plans to develop it herself. She's looking to
He's looking to sell the property.
sell the property.
Get it rezoned and list the property for sale as a commercial tract.
Are there any covenants on that property with the utility line being so close? Are there any
There is a
restrictions?
dedicated easement across that edge. Honestly, there are no additional covenants.
How adamant is the staff on they would prefer a conditional rezoning preferred option? How strongly do y'all feel about this being a preferred option is the conditional rezoning?
Well, I mean, you know, staff's always gonna support a conditional rezoning in any case, just because, you know, we like to know exactly what's gonna happen on the piece of property. So we can look at the site plan, we know what it's gonna look like. When it gets to you guys, you review it, you know what it's gonna look like. It gets to the county commissioners, they see it, they know what it looks like, the neighbors know what it looks like. So that's always gonna be a preferred option. But it's not the only option. You know, what James said is true, you know, that you do have both options under the ordinance. Staff obviously, and I think any appointed or elected body would prefer, as much information as they can get. If those uses can be narrowed down to something very specific with the site plan, I think that's always gonna be the option that somebody wants to go with. But again, that's not the option that was chosen on this one. County staff, we did take a hard look at this one, and we had a lot of good conversation when we were talking about our recommendation. And basically, we just came down to the fact that the land use plan projected this as a neighborhood center. B2 seemed to fit that category, but we also wanted to point out to you guys that there were some. We wanted to point out all the uses in the B2 just so you had them in front of you, just so you knew, you know, if you did approve it or if you did recommend approval, this is what could go there. So that was kind of the discussion staff had. It wasn't that we were, you know, strongly one way or the other. But we went with the land use plan, decided that the land use plan projected commercial. B2 seemed to fit. So that's why we recommended in favor. But we also, again, wanted to point out those uses, that all the uses that could be done.
If I can make a comment, just looking at the acreage, I mean, it's a relatively small parcel of property with 3.75 acres. I think I'd have a little more concern with it if it were 30 acres and you could put a detention center or correctional facility or something like that. That would be my biggest concern of all the uses. But considering the size, I think you're really kind of limited in what you can do on that property, regardless of what the allowed uses are. I mean, I don't see, unless it's a really, really small church like in Marvin, I don't see a lot of viable uses on a large scale that would impact any of the residential areas. So I don't really have a problem with Ms. Pittman wanting to realize the value of her property in a different manner.
Any further comments?
I think, Mr. Chair, that if you look at page 9 of the comprehensive plan update, it talks about the lack of diverse tax base. I think with the recognition that the property owner has that has been presented to us tonight, this will give a opportunity to cut into that 94% tax base. I can see this being, having done a lot of retail in my lifetime, I can see retail in there at different sizes, maybe an entrepreneur, a startup business or something along that line with the right developer. And I look at it this way, she's had this land for a lot of years, and why not let her reap the rewards instead of selling it like what you pointed out, and somebody else reaping the high financial gain. So I'm in favor of it as well.
I think if from the staff's perspective, we try to look at positives and negatives, and the negatives just didn't really outweigh the positives on this. And in other circumstances, we might stand up and jump up and down and tell you it needs to be conditional. But in this circumstance, we just didn't feel strongly enough that the negatives outweighed the positives. So
Yeah, I can certainly understand why the board would want it to be a conditional zoning, but like I said, the parcel size, I think, really drives the necessity to have that much control over this piece of property to make it conditional. So I think that it's one of those battles I guess you're probably not willing to fight, and I don't think we, or at least I am not opposed to leaving it as a straight B2.
All right. Anybody have any further comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll call Mr. Dick Black to the stand, and
We've got a short report, like you remember back in October, November, we finished up the transportation plan, the comp plan, the 74 study, and the UDO. So most of the stuff we've been working on lately, we did submit our budget for 2015-16, so we're working on that, got that submitted. Depending on what's approved, we'll have some projects come out of that. Hopefully we'll do some small area plans from different areas. Might even do a agricultural development plan involving both the Union Monroe economic development people and cooperative extension. So we've got some projects, right on the verge of, once we get our work program for the next year, that I think will be exciting projects to work on. In addition to the budget, we're working on trying to amend our contract, where we'll come out with an administrative manual for the UDO that we just approved. Administrative manual, maybe some of the more administrative type things we would have an ordinance would go into that. It would be a kind of a companion document that would go along with, almost like a user's guide. So hopefully we'll get to work on that very, very soon. So we've got that coming up in the spring. One thing I wanted to, another thing is the UDO. We're in the process of putting together a list. Once you do one of those documents and you think you've got all the warts and bugs worked out, if you start using it, people come in with projects, you see some of the omissions or things that should have been in or clarifications. So we'll put together a list of that, so we'll be coming back with some, a list of kind of minor type amendments, like I say, clarifications, omissions, those kinds of things on the UDO. And the other thing I'd like to, we've got 3 members that come in for reappointment. That would probably be on one of the commissioner's agenda for the April 6th meeting. So please, if you would be interested in being reappointed, please get your application. I know it sounds kind of, but you have to resubmit your application. Have that in to Lynn West, the county clerk, sometime no later than the week of March 23rd. That week there, where you can get your application in. Those, we've got 3 members that are up for reappointment. So hopefully they'll want to be reappointed. If you do, please get your application in.
Who all is up for reappointment?
Robert and Roger and James. So we'd love to have everybody back if you've got the time to do that. And please get your applications in. Brian, do you have anything else? Lee, that concludes our work in progress.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Black. Well, at this time, the chair will listen to any brief comments from anyone, or will entertain any brief comments.
I don't have any entertaining comments.
All right. Anyone's
No,
welcome.
Dick actually answered the question that I was going to ask during the brief comment section. So I will comply and get my application back in.
Can only encourage you to, okay, in a timely fashion.
I've enjoyed, it seems kind of strange, it's been 3 years already, but it's gone by quickly, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but I enjoyed the time that I've spent. Would love to serve again.
They say time flies when you're having a good time.
Well, it's only because you're beside the great entertainer, Russell Wayne.
Is that what it is?
Does anyone have any more comments? If not, do I hear a motion we adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
And we would like to thank the lady for being here tonight.
Yes.
It was a much more civil proceeding with you here.
Thank you about the minutes, it
Yeah.
really helped.
That definitely helps. That makes Pam a lot happier.
Can you take these for